Tales by Ebi. A long time ago, in the village of Umuchi, there was a girl named Ijeoma. She was the daughter of Chief Obinna, one of the wealthiest men in the land. Ijeoma was kind and beautiful, with bright eyes and a soft voice. But she had one problem: Ijeoma never liked to listen to advice from her parents or elders. Whenever anyone told her to do something, she would ignore them and do as she pleased. Her mother often warned her, "Ijeoma, you must learn to listen. Not everyone who gives advice is trying to control you. Sometimes, they just want to help." But Ijeoma would shake her head and say, "I know what I'm doing, Mama. I don't need anyone to tell me what is right." Because of her stubbornness, Ijeoma often found herself in trouble. She would leave her chores undone, wander off into the forest when she was told to stay close to the village, and even miss important village meetings. One day, the village prepared for the Great Ikeji festival, a time when families came together to celebrate with food, music, and dancing. Everyone was excited, including Ijeoma, who loved to dance. She couldn't wait to show off her dancing skills at the festival. As the festival drew near, Ijeoma's mother gave her some advice. "Ijeoma, when you go to the festival, remember to stay with your friends. Do not wander off alone. There are many strangers from other villages, and it is easy to get lost." But Ijeoma, as usual, paid no attention to her mother's warning. "Mama, I'm old enough to take care of myself. Don't worry about me," she said. On the day of the festival, the village square was filled with people. Drummers beat their drums, flutes played sweet tunes, and people danced happily. Ijeoma joined the crowd and began dancing, her feet moving swiftly to the rhythm of the drums. She danced so well that many people stopped to watch her. As she danced, Ijeoma noticed a young man dressed in beautiful clothes, standing at the edge of the crowd. He was playing a drum and smiling at her. His drum was different from the others, and its sound was so captivating that Ijeoma couldn't resist dancing to its beat. She danced and danced, moving further and further away from the crowd, following the sound of the young man's drum. Soon, Ijeoma found herself far from the village square. The music from the festival faded into the distance, and the only sound she could hear was the young man's drum. She stopped dancing and looked around. She was in the middle of a small clearing in the forest, far away from the festival. The young man had stopped drumming and was now standing quietly, watching her. Ijeoma felt a little uneasy. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked. The young man smiled and said, "I didn't bring you here. You followed my drum because you enjoyed dancing." Ijeoma realized she had made a mistake by leaving the safety of the village, but she didn't want to admit it. "I think I should go back now," she said, turning to leave. Just as she began to walk away, a strange sound filled the air. The trees rustled, and the wind began to blow fiercely. Ijeoma looked back, and the young man had disappeared into the forest, leaving her alone. She tried to find her way back to the village, but the path was no longer clear. Ijeoma's heart began to race. She was lost. "Mama was right," she thought to herself. "I should have stayed with my friends at the festival." Ijeoma's legs trembled as she tried to find her way out of the forest. The once peaceful trees now seemed tall and frightening, their branches swaying like arms ready to grab her. She called out for help, but her voice was swallowed by the wind. "Mama, Papa, somebody help me," she shouted, but no one answered. Suddenly, she heard footsteps behind her. Her heart leaped with hope. "Maybe it's someone from the village," she thought. She turned around quickly, expecting to see a familiar face. But instead, it was the young man who had been playing the drum earlier. He smiled gently, but this time Ijeoma did not feel comforted by his presence. "Why are you following me?" she asked, her voice shaky. "I'm not following you," he replied softly. "I'm here to help you find your way back. You wandered too far from the festival." Ijeoma hesitated. She wanted to trust him, but she remembered how her mother had warned her about wandering off. "I don't know if I should trust you," she said, stepping back. "You led me here, far from my village." The young man shook his head. "I only played the drum. You chose to follow the sound. But if you don't want my help, I understand. I will leave you here." As he began to walk away, Ijeoma realized how alone she truly was. The forest was darkening, and the night animals were beginning to stir. She didn't want to be left alone in the forest with no way out. Swallowing her pride, she called out, "Wait. Please don't go." The young man stopped and turned around. "Do you want me to help you now?" he asked, his voice calm and kind. Ijeoma nodded, feeling embarrassed. "Yes, please. I don't want to be lost here." The young man walked back to her and said, "Follow me closely, and I will take you back to the village." Ijeoma didn't argue this time. She stayed close behind him, careful not to stray as they made their way through the thick trees. They walked in silence for what seemed like forever. Ijeoma was beginning to worry that they were still lost when she suddenly heard the distant sound of drums and laughter. It was the festival. They were close. "We're almost there," the young man said, glancing back at her. Ijeoma's heart lifted with relief, but before she could thank him, something strange happened. The young man began to change. His clothes shimmered and transformed into the attire of a prince. His face, once gentle and plain, became strikingly handsome. Ijeoma gasped. "Who are you?" she whispered, her eyes wide with shock. The young man smiled again, but this time there was a sparkle in his eyes. "I am Prince Chima," he said. "I come from the kingdom beyond the hills, and I visit your village only during the Akaji festival. Many don't know me because I like to walk among the people in simple clothes." Ijeoma's mouth fell open in surprise. "A prince? Why did you play the drum for me?" Prince Chima chuckled softly. "I saw you dancing alone, and I wanted to make you smile. I love music, and I thought it would be nice to share that moment with you. I didn't expect you to follow me, but I'm glad we met." Ijeoma blushed, feeling shy all of a sudden. She had been rude to him, thinking he was just an ordinary drummer, but he was a prince all along. "I'm sorry for not trusting you earlier," she said quietly. Prince Chima shook his head. "There's no need to apologize. You were just scared, and it's good to be careful. Now, let's get you back to your family." As they neared the village square, Ijeoma could see the lights and hear the joyful sounds of the festival. She felt a wave of relief wash over her. But deep inside, she knew this meeting with Prince Chima had changed something. She was not the same stubborn girl who ignored advice anymore. Just as they reached the edge of the village, Ijeoma turned to thank Prince Chima again, but he was gone. She looked around, confused, but there was no sign of him. It was as if he had vanished into the night. Ijeoma stood there for a moment, wondering if she would ever see him again. Then, taking a deep breath, she stepped back into the light of the festival, her heart full of questions she didn't yet have answers to. Ijeoma stood at the edge of the festival, her heart still racing from the encounter with Prince Chima. The sounds of drums, laughter, and chatter filled the air, but she felt distant from it all. She couldn't stop thinking about the prince who had vanished so suddenly. "Will I ever see him again?" she wondered to herself. As she walked through the crowd, her friends spotted her. "Ijeoma, where have you been? We've been looking for you everywhere," one of them said, grabbing her hand. Ijeoma forced a smile, trying to push the thoughts of Prince Chima away. I just went for a walk," she replied, not wanting to explain everything that had happened. Her friends didn't ask more questions, pulling her back into the circle of dancers. The drums were lively, and everyone was having a good time, but Ijeoma felt a strange emptiness. Her feet moved to the beat, but her heart wasn't in it. She kept glancing around, hoping to catch another glimpse of the mysterious prince. Days passed after the Akaji festival, and life in Umuchi village returned to normal. Ijeoma tried to focus on her daily tasks, helping her mother around the house and visiting her friends. But no matter what she did, she couldn't shake the memory of Prince Chima. Every evening, she would sit by the river, hoping he would return, but he never did. One afternoon, while Ijeoma was fetching water from the river, she overheard two women from the village talking. "Did you hear the news from the kingdom beyond the hills?" one of the women asked. "No, what happened?" the other replied, curious. "They say Prince Chima is supposed to choose a bride soon. His father, the king, has been sending messengers to nearby villages to invite young women to the palace. They are hosting a grand feast, and the prince will choose his future queen." Ijeoma's heart skipped a beat. Prince Chima, the prince who had played the drum for her and helped her find her way home. Could it be that he was now looking for a bride? As the women walked away, Ijeoma felt a surge of excitement and worry at the same time. Should she go? Would he remember her? What if he didn't? She wasn't sure if she was ready to face him again, especially after he had disappeared without saying goodbye. That evening, Ijeoma sat down with her mother. "Mama, I heard that Prince Chima is looking for a bride," she said carefully, not wanting to reveal too much. Her mother nodded. "Yes, I heard the same. The prince is holding a grand feast, and many young women from the neighboring villages will be there." Ijeoma hesitated. "Do you think I should go?" Her mother looked at her for a long moment before speaking. "Ijeoma, you have always been special. If you feel in your heart that you should go, then go. But remember, it is not just about beauty or status. You must be true to yourself." The next morning, Ijeoma decided to travel to the kingdom beyond the hills. She wore a simple, elegant dress and carried herself with the quiet confidence her mother had always admired. She knew it wasn't about impressing anyone but about finding out if there was a connection between her and the prince. When she arrived at the palace, it was grander than anything she had ever imagined. The walls were made of smooth stone, and the gates were guarded by men dressed in fine robes. Inside, the courtyard was filled with beautiful young women, all hoping to catch the eye of the prince. Ijeoma felt a knot form in her stomach. These women were all so glamorous, and she felt out of place among them. But she reminded herself of what her mother had said, "Be true to yourself." As the feast began, the women were introduced to Prince Chima one by one. Ijeoma awaited her turn, feeling her heart pound in her chest. When her name was finally called, she stepped forward. Prince Chima was sitting on a grand chair, looking every bit the royal figure she remembered. But as their eyes met, something changed. His face lit up with recognition, and he stood up. "Ijeoma," he said softly, stepping closer. "I've been waiting for you." Ijeoma's breath caught in her throat. You remember me?" Prince Chima smiled, the same warm smile she had seen the night they danced together. "How could I forget the girl who danced so beautifully in the forest?" Just as Ijeoma was about to speak, a loud trumpet echoed through the courtyard, interrupting their moment. The king stood up, announcing that the feast would continue with a special challenge for all the young women, a test to see who was truly worthy to become the future queen. Ijeoma looked at Prince Chima, her heart filled with questions once again. What kind of challenge was this? And could she really prove herself in front of everyone? The excitement was building, but Ijeoma knew that her journey was far from over. The courtyard buzzed with excitement as the king's voice echoed through the palace grounds. The young women gathered, all whispering nervously about what kind of challenge lay ahead. Ijeoma's heart raced as she stood among them, still feeling the weight of Prince Chima's gaze on her. "The challenge," the king announced, "is not one of strength or beauty, but of wisdom and kindness. Each of you will be given a task that will show who has the heart of a true queen." Ijeoma felt a wave of relief wash over her. This wasn't going to be a contest of who was the most elegant or well-dressed, but one that tested their character. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of her mother's words, "Be true to yourself." One by one, the young women were called forward and given their tasks. Some were asked to help the elderly villagers, others to settle disputes between people from different villages. As Ijeoma watched, she realized that each task required careful thought and a gentle spirit. Finally, it was Ijeoma's turn. She stepped forward, her heart pounding. The king looked at her kindly and said, "Your task is simple, but important. There is an old man who lives on the edge of the village, all alone. He has no family and has been sick for many days. Your task is to care for him until he recovers, and in that time, you will learn what it means to be a true leader, one who serves her people with love and compassion." Ijeoma nodded, feeling both nervous and determined. She knew this task would not be easy, but she was ready. Prince Chima watched her closely as she set off toward the old man's hut, and she couldn't help but feel a warmth in her chest knowing that he believed in her. When Ijeoma arrived at the old man's hut, she found him lying on a simple bed, coughing weakly. His face was pale, and his clothes were worn and tattered. The room smelled of herbs and sickness, and there was little food or water in sight. "Who are you?" the old man asked in a raspy voice. "My name is Ijeoma," she said softly, sitting beside him. "I've come to help you get better." The old man looked at her with tired eyes. "No one has come to see me in days. Why would you want to help an old man like me?" Ijeoma smiled gently. "Because it's the right thing to do. Everyone deserves kindness, no matter who they are." Over the next few days, Ijeoma worked hard to care for the old man. She fetched water from the river, cooked simple meals for him, and made sure his bed was clean and comfortable. She also gathered herbs from the forest to make healing teas, just as her mother had taught her. As she worked, the old man began to improve. His cough lessened, and he started to regain his strength. But what surprised Ijeoma most was how much she learned from him. He told her stories of the old days, of the wars between the villages, and of the wisdom he had gained from his years. Ijeoma listened closely, soaking in every word. "You have a good heart, Ijeoma," the old man said one day as she brought him a bowl of soup. "You remind me of my own daughter, who was always kind to others. She passed away many years ago, but seeing you here reminds me that there are still good people in this world." Ijeoma smiled, touched by his words. "Thank you," she said softly. "But I'm just doing what I believe is right." Days turned into weeks, and soon the old man was fully recovered. Ijeoma felt proud of what she had accomplished, not just because she had completed her task, but because she had made a real difference in someone's life. One morning, as Ijeoma was preparing to leave the hut and return to the palace, the old man called her over. "Before you go, I have something for you," he said, reaching under his bed. He pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden box. "This belongs to my daughter, and I want you to have it." Ijeoma hesitated. "I can't take this. It's too precious." The old man shook his head. "You've shown me more kindness than anyone has in years. It would make me happy to know that my daughter's memory lives on through you." Ijeoma accepted the gift with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. When she returned to the palace, Ijeoma found that the other young women had also completed their tasks, each with their own stories to tell. But none of them seemed as deeply affected as Ijeoma was by her experience. She realized that the true lesson of the challenge wasn't just about completing a task, but about growing as a person and learning the value of kindness and service. The day of the final decision arrived, and the king called all the young women to the grand hall. Prince Chima stood by his father's side, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on Ijeoma. She felt a flutter in her stomach as she met his gaze. "My son will now choose his bride," the king announced. Ijeoma's heart raced. She had no idea what Prince Chima was thinking, but she hoped that her journey had shown him who she truly was. Prince Chima stepped forward, his eyes full of warmth and kindness. He looked at each of the young women in turn, but when his gaze rested on Ijeoma, he smiled. "Ijeoma," he said, his voice steady and sure, "you are the one I choose." Gasps filled the hall as the other women looked at her in surprise, but Ijeoma could hardly breathe. She stepped forward, her mind racing. Before she could say anything, Prince Chima continued, "You have shown that a true queen is not just beautiful or powerful, but kind, wise, and compassionate. That is why I chose you." As the hall erupted in applause, Ijeoma felt overwhelmed with emotion. But as she stood there, beside the prince, she realized her journey was just beginning. Ijeoma stood beside Prince Chima, her heart still racing as the applause echoed through the grand hall. She could hardly believe it. She had been chosen as the prince's bride, not because of her beauty or status, but because of the kindness and wisdom she had shown. For the first time in her life, Ijeoma truly understood the meaning of her mother's words, "Being true to yourself is what makes you worthy." The celebration continued late into the evening. The king, proud of his son's choice, blessed the union in front of the gathered villagers and guests from nearby kingdoms. As the feast carried on, Ijeoma found herself surrounded by well-wishers. But despite the excitement, she couldn't help but think of the old man she had cared for. His wise words about kindness still echoed in her mind, and she realized that her journey wasn't just about becoming a queen, it was about understanding the true value of service to others. As the night drew to a close, Prince Chima found Ijeoma standing alone on the palace balcony, looking up at the stars. He walked over to her, a soft smile on his face. "You look deep in thought," he said gently. Ijeoma turned to him, smiling back. I was just thinking about everything that's happened, she said. I never imagined my life would take this turn. I thought I was just a girl who didn't listen, always making mistakes. But now, I see that every step, even the wrong ones, led me here. Prince Chimer nodded. Sometimes, the challenges we face are the very things that shape us. You were tested, not just by the task my father gave you, but by life itself. And you proved yourself in ways no one else could. Ijioma's heart swelled with gratitude. She realized that her story wasn't just about finding a prince or becoming a queen, it was about growth, learning, and transformation. She had learned the importance of listening, of accepting help when needed, and of showing kindness, even when it seemed difficult. A few days after the celebration, Ijeoma and Prince Chimer visited the old man at his hut. When the old man saw them, his face lit up with joy. "Ah, my dear Ijeoma," he said, his voice full of warmth. "I hear you are to be our future queen." Ijeoma smiled, kneeling beside him. "I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the lessons I learned from you," she said. "Thank you for teaching me the value of kindness and patience." The old man chuckled softly. "Ah, child, it is not I who taught you. You had it in you all along. I only helped you see it." As they left the old man's hut, Ijeoma felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. She knew that her life as a queen would be filled with new challenges, but she was ready. She would rule with the same kindness and wisdom that had brought her to this moment, never forgetting the lessons she had learned along the way. Moral lessons. 1. True worth comes from within. Ijeoma's journey teaches that it's not beauty or status that defines a person, but their kindness, wisdom, and ability to care for others. 2. Listen to those who care for you. Ijeoma's growth came when she realized the importance of listening to the advice of her parents and elders. Ignoring those who care for you can lead to unnecessary trouble. 3. Kindness and service to others are the greatest virtues. Throughout the story, Ijeoma learns that helping others, especially those in need, brings more fulfillment than any reward or title. 4. Challenges shape us. The obstacles Ijeoma faced helped her grow and become the person she was destined to be. Life's challenges are often opportunities for personal growth. And so, Ijeoma became a beloved queen, known not just for her grace and beauty, but for her heart full of kindness and wisdom. She ruled fairly and justly, always remembering the lessons she had learned during her journey. The village of Umuchi prospered under her reign, and she and Prince Chimer lived happily, always striving to serve their people with love and care. The end. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more thrilling tales like this, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Your support helps me continue sharing exciting and interesting stories. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.